Hello, everyone. Thank you for sliding into our DMs of Disability. My name is Dan Pizzetta,
Hi, I am Montana.
and we are so excited to have this be a big passion project. We have been talking about this for a couple months now, and we are thrilled to be launching this and being able to share our experiences being disabled and the whole aspects of disability culture. Before we go into our topic today, we just wanted to quickly provide a little information about who we are as people and our experience, what our disabilities are, and some of the things that we have done in the past. So I have aortic stenosis. I was born with it. It is a congenital heart defect that has required me to have many different open heart surgeries. It requires me to balance a lot of my health. I actually went to a cardiologist appointment today. And I have been involved in advocacy now for about 6 years. I've done many different speaking engagements. I have an Instagram page titled Disability Rewritten, where I talk about disability life and culture. And it's an important thing for me to be able to share this experience with other disabled people to make sure they don't feel alone, but also able-bodied people so that way they can experience or get an experience that they don't know about.
Yeah. Well, I'm Montana. I am from North Carolina and I have two chronic diseases. I was actually diagnosed with my first one as a late teen, freshman in college, exactly. I was diagnosed with a rare eye disease called uveitis, and then a few years later, I got diagnosed with arthritis, which was mostly spondylitis, which is arthritis in your large joints. Through that experience, I have been trying to find a community and support systems because I have a lovely support system with my family. However, most of them are able-bodied, so it is a very different community. I've been a advocate probably close to a year or two now. I started as a board member with One Rare, which I completely adore, and now I'm diving into more such as being with Dan with this podcast and just trying to see how else I can make my voice heard. Before, I have been very much on the dark side of things of not fully accepting my disability and my chronic diseases. But the last year, I would say I've been really owning who I am as a person and my chronic illness. So I'm super excited to talk more about this in our episode and just find others like us to talk more about what's been going on in the community and how we can lift each other up moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that everything that you said, it beautifully transitions into what our topic is today. Both of us are young adults in the whole community. We're both in our early 20s. And we have had a lot of struggles in terms of growing up being young and disabled and trying to find that sense of community or trying to
Hmm.
find that acceptance of ourselves or acceptance that other people have in us. And I know I've heard a lot of Montana's story, and I've been very open about my story, and we're excited to share our unique perspectives because we also have different perspectives as well.
Yeah, 100%. I came into the space, I guess very new because a lot of people I've met recently, they have been disabled or have had their illness since they were born or young. I have a kind of different outlook because I was diagnosed as a teenager. So with having that perspective, I've always thought it'll go away. Like it's fine, like everything's good, it'll go away. I'm about to be in the fifth year of my diagnosis, and it's still here. It's chronic, it's not going away anytime soon. I am stabled finally after years of trying to figure that out, but just trying to accept that it's okay. Um, to grieve who you were if you have just been recently diagnosed. But it's also okay if you were diagnosed previously when you were young to ask those questions of like why. It's natural to feel that way. And I hope with having this podcast, it's opens a line of communication for disabled as well as able-bodied to just show up and talk more.
And I think the one thing that you said that is really important to take out of that is that idea of that we don't get better. And someone in my perspective, I was born with my condition. I don't know a life outside of disability. And is it does take a lot of times where I do grieve about wondering what my life could have been if I wasn't disabled. But
Hmm.
At the same time, I'm also very grateful because the disability in my life has given me all the beauty within it. But it is tough at times, like growing up and having friends that don't understand that it's not like a flu or a cold. Like I'm about to have surgery and these surgeries are going
Yeah.
to be happening constantly in my life. Or this idea of like, I feel like disability because we have to accept the fact that we're not going to get better. Compared to other people, we almost like hyper mature. And I
Mhm.
felt very ready for a lot of possibilities, whether that's my condition getting worse or dying or anything like that. And that's something that like a normal like 10, 11-year old doesn't really think of.
Yeah, no, you've hit on so many amazing points regarding that. One thing that I've been struggling with the last year, I've been having a lot of infections. And before my chronic illness has not been bad, but I got on another immunosuppressant, so my immune system kind of sucks. I'm still grateful for where I'm at today, but I would be taking time off with work or just needing extra time to recover. And everyone will be like, "Oh my God, I hope you feel better. Just rest." And they assume like a day or two, I'll be completely fine. However, it takes me so much longer to recover. And like you were saying, like when you were a kid, everyone's like, "Oh, feel better, like, oh, you're taking a sick day, but you're having a surgery." I feel like a lot of people make it so much smaller than what we're actually going through. So then in our head, we're kind of minimizing it. Because I've caught myself multiple times being like, I need to go back to work. However, I'm still struggling to get out of bed due to feeling like crap.
Yeah. And it's tough because we have to feel like we're almost gaslighting ourselves into thinking that our condition is not as bad or that we're not in as
Hmm.
much pain as we're making it out to be because we do fear that stigma of if we go if we express our pain in the right way, people may think that either we're exaggerating it for attention or pain or for time off or anything like that. Or and it's just tough because it feels like when we're our most honest selves and talking about these issues is when we catch the most criticism from other people that don't know what our lives are going like what we go through in our lives.
Yeah, 100%. They don't know like what we're going through, or they try and understand. I've had a few people the past like year, they've tried to understand or explained like what they were going through was similar to what I was going through. And I'm a person that always like love listening and hearing them out, but I'm like, wait, no. What you had previously was just like a cold, you got better in like a few days. What I'm going through is having multiple infections. One time I had a kidney infection and they were worried that was going to spread. So I was very like terrified because I've never been that sick in my life. I've never had something affect my organs. And even to this day, when I start getting similar pain to that, I call my doctor up and be like, "Hey, can we get blood work? Can we ensure like this is not the case?" Because I have PTSD from what I experienced back 6 months ago from an infection that took me forever to recover because it just kept getting worse and worse. And I was on so many antibiotics and so many like medications to help. I finally recovered, but I'm still recovering mentally from that
Yeah.
experience because I had a similar experience in November where I had another infection and I was like, oh my goodness, is this the big one? Is this the one where I'm going like back to the hospital to the ER? And I have to talk myself down a lot of times to be like, hey, no, like let's not think the worst thing. But also being realistic in that situation of being like, hey, you are not a normal person. You do have a immune system that is suppressed. Like you need to be a little bit more careful than the average human. So trying to keep that balance of figuring out what is the balance for you like moving forward. I feel like that's been the most difficult transition for me, having these chronic illnesses for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is not really realized by a lot of able-bodied people is that there's such a mental toll for being disabled, whether it's a physical disability or a mental disability or any disability in general. There's
Hmm.
just such a tax on our mind and the fears that we go through, the isolation, the uh just the general understanding that we're not okay and that it's a problem, but we're
Mhm.
in this world that everyone expects us to be okay. And it is tough, like when you said that people will share stories that aren't necessarily applicable, but they're trying wholeheartedly to be a helpful resource. And I think the best people that I've ever experienced that have helped me, even though they may have never gone through disability, is people that are willing to listen. They aren't ones giving the advice or sharing their perspective, but if they are able to just validate and tell me that they hear me and they're asking me like, what do you think is the best way? How can I help support you in that way? That's been some of the most thankful support that I've ever experienced. And that's something that I always spread to anyone who's able-bodied if they want to support their disabled person in their life.
Yeah, that's really amazing to hear that you have that support system of people who are able-bodied who can come in, not even with a different perspective, but just listening to you and hearing you. And I don't even know if validating is like the correct term, but I'm like blanking on words
Yeah, I think
here.
that's a wonderful term.
Okay, like validating, like with what you're feeling at that moment, and just not sugarcoating it. I feel
Yeah,
like a lot of people, I love, like I
they want to
say,
dance around disability. They don't want to say it like they think it's a bad word.
oh my God, yes. I feel a lot of my close friends or used to be close friends, it was kind of hard because they, like you were saying, like danced around it or they've tried to put themselves in like my shoes, which I really appreciate any like support that they offer. But sometimes I just want to vent. Sometimes I just
Yeah,
want to be like, okay, this sucks. This is what I'm going through. A normal person's not going through it. But I don't know. I feel like the
yeah,
advice that I've been given sometimes of keep your chin up, it could be worse, which with my condition, I'm super, super grateful that I do not have any vision loss. That is one thing I'm very, very thankful for. So in my mind, I'm over here, I'm like, okay, I have this rare eye disease. I do have pain. I do have symptoms of everything that's going on. I can lose my vision depending like on what's going on. Like if I'm on the screen too much, I can have blurry vision. And then I've had episodes of flares where I do lose visions for a little bit of time, but it's always come back. So I'm super, super happy about that. However, with me not actually losing my vision, I'm over here basically telling myself what I'm going through is not a, I don't want to say enough, but it's not that big of a deal because I know people who have similar diseases as me and they lost their vision. So I always try to be grateful because I feel like that's how my support group was like, oh, at least you're not blind. And my friend like, yeah, that's true. I should be grateful, but like I'm in a lot of pain right now.
yeah. And I think it's that balance of the 2 points that I think were really interesting were the one where you just want to vent. And I think a lot of people have that idea of like they have to fix something. And I don't
Hmm.
we're not gonna be fixed. We're not You're not gonna undisable me. Like just
Yeah.
listen to what I have to say, what I'm going through, and just let me have my 15 minutes. And
Mhm.
I think the other thing for perspective, I think it could be really easy within this community to invalidate your disability because other people may have it worse, or that idea of um while I have this going on in my life, other people have this going on. And I think one thing that's just important to realize, I think, in the whole disability community is that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're 1% disabled or 50% or 100% disabled, you're disabled. And this is a part
Mhm.
of the whole community. And while some people may have that perceived worse scenario, we're all
Mhm.
going through an incredibly hard experience that not too many other people can empathize. And especially for two of us, we're in the rare disease community, and that we don't have, I have never met anyone else in person with my specific disability. And what I have found beautiful about this is that regardless of our different disabilities and what we've gone through, we're able to come together and create a lot of good.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone I've met in this community has been super supportive and genuine and just so lovely to talk to. That's why I knew I wanted to dive in deeper and connect with more people regarding this because I remember first time I knew about Zebra Day, my old coworker posted it. And I was like, oh my God, like happy like rare disease day, like Zebra Day. And her husband actually had a rare disease, and that was the first person I met who had a rare disease. And that first time I did not like feel alone at all because I connected and we talked a lot and it was such like a lovely experience. And he's been so helpful like as a mentor through this experience. But it took around 2.5, 3 years of me being diagnosed with my eye disease to finally meet someone who has a rare disease.
That's beautiful that you were able to have that mentor and so early on in your journey as well. Because for me, it was stuff like I grew up in a very rural town in Northwest New Jersey, and there was no one else that was even close to being like me. And I never had someone
Wow.
as an adult, like an adult figure that I could look up to that was like me doing things. It didn't matter the disability, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to look up to someone. And it wasn't even until college when I had met or not met, but I had watched a YouTube series by this woman who's a rare disease advocate named Claire Wineland, who had cystic fibrosis. And her TED Talks and her YouTube channel and everything just spoke to all these feelings that I had in terms of how to perceive disability, how to perceive treating disabled people, how facing death or all of these mental health uh, aspects of disability resonated with me. And unfortunately, she passed away, but that was around the time that I knew she helped catapult me into wanting to get into this field and wanting to get into advocacy and being able to stand up for not only myself but other people within this community. And I've been so grateful to meet all of the incredible friends that have given basically a second family to me. It's amazing to be able to talk to you or many of my other friends in the whole community, and it just feels great to not feel alone.
Yeah. 100%. I completely hear you with that. That's really great that you were able to find like another avenue of that mentor, like you were saying with the YouTube videos, like the TED Talks, and hearing like what she had to say about what she was going through. When did you, by chance, like when did you like find this video? Because I know you said it was like years after like you were like diagnosed. I was just kind of curious, how many years ago was it, and then how that catapult to you with advocacy because you've been in advocacy for like 6 years now, killing it, can I
Thank
say?
you. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I had my last procedure in 2017, and around that time is when I was starting to get into college. And for me, I have an invisible disability, and for those of you who don't know, it's something that unless you know I have a disability, I can have a pretty good way of masking it and hiding it. However, there are like pains and things that I go through and things that I have to do to mitigate it. So when I originally went to college, I wanted to hide it as much as I could, and it was just eating away at my mental health. I wasn't able to connect with people at the level I wanted to, and it was in the summer right before my sophomore year that I had started watching this content. I started getting really engrossed with it, and I knew I needed to find a type of community and get involved, and that's how I originally reached out to an organization named Global Genes, and they connected me to
Hmm.
the Every Life Foundation, and that's where their young adult rare representative faction that they were just building at that time. It was a very new organization,
Wow.
and I was one of the first members, and it was really amazing to meet all those people. And it's amazing to see just like a lot of us were like very young, like teenage college students. And
Hmm.
now we're in that like mid 20s range. And now the whole new wave of that age group is coming in. And it's kind of almost feel like the grandpa and the next generation's coming in.
Oh my gosh. Uh, that's amazing that you've been part of that for so long. That's one thing I did not know, with having a rare disease, that there's so many community and like support systems that there's in place. I knew about like the board that I was part of, like One Rare, due to like my old coworker and like from a friend of a friend, like the grapevine of things happening. So I knew that. And with being a board member of One Rare, that's opened other doors and possibilities of advocacy as well as like community, which I have been so like thankful for. But I think that's also great to know for others too. Because whenever I meet someone and we start talking, and if they have something like similar to like what you and I are going through, or if they know someone, I've always tried to think of resources that can possibly equip them if they want it, of course, for moving forward. Because I feel like with having as much information and resources, you are powerful, you're knowledgeable, you have that extra fire in you to help move you forward. And I think that's what's helped me keep going is just trying to find as many resources as I can, or hopefully help others who are similar to what I've gone through, because I also have an invisible illness as well. Unless if I'm in a really bad flare. When I
Yeah.
got first diagnosed, I had red eyes. They altered from one eye to another eye and it was really extremely painful. Even to this day, if I have some redness in my eyes, I monitor it and make sure because I'm terrified of like my past experience. But everyone in college, I was a freshman in college, said, "Ew, you have pink eye. You shouldn't be here." And one time with
Oh
my
my
lab
God.
partner, yeah, I was with my lab partner. I remember that to the day. Um,
Yikes. That's awful. Oh my God.
yeah. And I'm just like, I don't actually. And
Yeah.
he just looked at me and I'm like, he's somewhat of a stranger. I'm not going to go into like my like details because I was still not really sure what was going on. I got misdiagnosed multiple times and everything. Um, but I remember having the physical aspect of like my invisible illness actually turned visible, that it made it a little bit more difficult. However, with me being stable now, and I'm having eye pain, no one knows unless like I voice it of, oh, I can't like see really well, or I've been having a lot of floaters. There's a lot of things going on. So I feel this is also a really great space to like talk more about invisible illness. And we just all need to be more kind individuals. Like I
I
was,
agree with that entirely. And I think that's
yeah.
something that, like you had mentioned, those types of resources and finding them
Mhm.
in a way, like it was for me, like growing up in the early 2000s, 2010s, like I those resources didn't exist. They weren't available, especially for people in our age. And
Yeah.
I'm forever grateful to help be a part of like the emergence of a type of resource
Mhm.
and building a new resource for disability rewritten, because I feel like these types of resources are so important and needed. So that way, like the next 7-year old with a disability or a 10-year old or 13, however old, doesn't
Yeah.
feel alone and knows that they can talk to these people about their issues, because it a lot of people just think that the only help that disabled people can get is through like a doctor or their specialist or anything like that. And yes,
Mhm.
that's a very important part. I'm not going to deny that, but I think knowing that there's a sense of community and that you're not alone going through this battle, and that you can share like what's the best way to help with this pain, or like how did you deal with this, or how do I
Mhm.
confront someone who's being mean and making ableist comments towards me. And I think that
Yeah.
it's something that a lot of people struggle to find that voice because they don't know how to properly um they were never given the right tools to defend themselves. And we it's important for us to be able to give those tools to people and provide a next generation of self-advocates.
100%. Another thing that I've realized through this journey is I'm a little bit different. What I mean is before when I was growing up, I was very shy and like introverted and like would not like ask for resources or like ask for support. But since being diagnosed, due to like my family not really knowing what was going on and like other people around me did not have anything similar to what I was going through, I was so hungry to find someone that had something similar or a community, like you were saying, of like resources. So I'm equipped and I know like what to do. And through that community, I just kept like Googling like who has like uveitis. I was looking on Instagram. I was like, what is uveitis? Of course, you should not go down like the rabbit hole of your diagnosis because you'll have like 20 other diagnoses. I've done that multiple times.
It's always fun to
Um,
play WebMD doctor, right?
oh God, yeah, no. Um, but I've been able to find a voice of just texting like or DMing, I guess the correct term, like random people being like, hey, like I saw that you made like this post regarding this. It really resonated with me. I was wondering if you would be interested in like setting up a call. And through that, I've met a few people in like a similar like community. Um, and I hope with this allows people to raise their hand if they want to and be like, hey, like I really like what you guys were talking about. Like, could we possibly talk? Or do you have like these resources? Because I know it can be difficult to get to the point of wanting to raise your voice. It took me 17, 18 years to finally be like, okay, the worst thing that can happen is someone saying no to me. If I send like an email or a text message, I just think I got to the point of I need another support. Need to know what other options I have available. I also think it was due to me not having many options with my last specialist I was at. It was like you either do this or surgery, and I was very not wanting to do surgery at that point because I was not losing vision. And I'm like, there has to be a better answer. There has to be. Um, so I went down that rabbit hole of trying to get support and just raising my voice to see if there's anyone who had something similar. And thankfully, I did meet someone who had something similar, and they gave really great like advice and resources. So hopefully, we can do the same. Um, and yeah,
So you really slid into their DMs. You literally very, very
yes, I
fitting, very fitting.
Yes, I did. One person actually has the same eye disease as me, but hers is a little bit different. Mine's in the front part of my eye, hers is in the back part of her eye. So a little same disease, but different variation. And then she had other friends or people she met online that had different eye diseases, but they were all on the same medications or been on the medications of like steroids and immunosuppressants and all of this. And that was when I was first starting the process of getting on strong medications for my diagnosis. And it was a very hard pill, literally, to swallow because I I was like, wow. Because I went to WebMD, Montana as a doctor, being like, oh, side effects of medicines. Oh, what's this? I'm like, oh, wait, what is used for this? Oh my goodness. Um,
Diagnose yourself with 10 other things.
Yes, exactly. Don't do it. Don't advise it at all. But with them, it was super helpful because they kind of told me what they were going through, what medications have worked for them, what hasn't worked, what they're hoping to talk to their doctors about. So whenever I'm thinking about getting on new medication, or talking to my doctor about it, I message them. We maybe talk like maybe 2, 3 times a year, if that. Just checking in on how everyone's doing. But I really enjoyed that community, even though we're not as active as we used to be when we all were getting diagnosed and we were a lot younger. It's still a great resource to utilize when I need it. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate those people.
And that's something that's really powerful is that you took that first step and you really dove into that. And that's something that one of my bigger regrets growing up was that I never took that step. And I just took a lot of abuse and allowed myself to be lonely in a lot of situations that I shouldn't have been. There's one of the stories that I always share is the nickname that a lot of people had used for me. So it was ninth grade, and this was like right after I had a procedure, and I wasn't cleared to play basketball, and I desperately wanted to play basketball. And this was like the first time that I had to really be open about my condition because I can't just be on the team and not play or be in practices and just like show up and not really have a good explanation. So explaining my heart condition, it got molded into me being called heart cancer. And I just took it because I just wanted to be a part of the team and I really wanted to play. And it was something that I shouldn't have taken. I feel like I wish I had the courage to take that step or feel like I had a community to back me. but I just felt like this was kind of like a part of the deal that I have, and this is like I'm just gonna continue living my life. I'm gonna continue making sure that I'm okay, making sure that I'm gonna get cleared. But it really took away a lot of the love and passion that I had for that, just because of I just didn't feel like I was accepted or that I was a part of anything, and that I was different in a way. Um, and that's why I am grateful that later in my life, going into college, that I was able to take that first step, because I fear like if I didn't, I'd still be kind of somewhat going through like this endless like rut in this cycle. Um, and that's something that I think one experience that kind of regressed me a little bit was the pandemic, because I feel like, especially for us being very young, we've always had that concept of death or our condition getting worse. But getting COVID, especially early on before vaccinations, was a huge risk for both of those.
Oh,
And we didn't have a community. We legitimately couldn't be around each other. And while Zoom helps,
mm-hmm.
it wasn't the same. And I feel like it really isolated and divided us to take care of ourselves. And at the end of the day, we didn't realize, or it took us a while to realize that the best way to heal ourselves is to help each other.
Yeah. Man, I'm so sorry that they started that nickname in high
Yeah.
school. That is, oh my goodness. I've never heard you tell me that story, and I can't believe I want to say kids, but also like teenagers. I feel like at that certain like age point, you should kind of know a little bit better to
Yeah,
like
because
say
we were
that.
like 13 and 14 around that time. And I feel like around that time is like when you start understanding more complex and complicated
Hmm.
concepts in the world, and that it's not just like black and white. There's a lot of gray area in the world.
Yeah, because you're definitely taking biology and chemistry classes and like dissecting frogs, pigs, whatever you're doing in like school. So I feel like they should have been more, I don't know, aware.
Yeah.
But I'm so
No,
sorry that happened to you. But I'm glad that you did take that first step of like moving forward in college and finding your voice and then finding also your purpose because like you've been an advocate for many years from now and you're doing really great. So it sounds like you're right where you need to be.
thank you. No, I truly appreciate that. That means a lot coming from you. And yeah, I'm very in a weird way very grateful that I had those experiences, because it's important to talk about those types of things. And that,
Hmm.
especially for me, like I have been in this community for a very long time, and I know that what I share is important for younger people that want to get into advocacy, not only in legislation but for themselves and for their community. um I think that being able to share that type of vulnerability is important for anyone's story, and that it's okay that things were bad and things were dark and things weren't good for you, because it can really we can really dig a lot of lessons from that bad, and that we can still, even there was a lot of bad, we could still create a lot of beauty from that and make this world a better place. And just because they were bad people doesn't mean the world is bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Is definitely one thing to be self-aware, but also having the agency to dig deeper, like you were saying, and go into the vulnerability of what has happened since being diagnosed and sharing that so other people don't feel alone, but we can also have this community and like other people, just the world, hopefully, understand that you don't know what's going on in someone else's shoes. No one
Yeah,
does.
exactly.
So be kind and try your best. You're not going to get along with everyone in the world. We understand that, but don't make someone's life difficult or call names because you think it's funny. They can live with that for a very long time. Yeah, I just the world would
Yeah,
be a lot better if everyone was very kind and if people were a little bit more self-aware, just a little.
i I couldn't have said that better, and I think that's a really great way to bookend part one of this podcast. We have been so thankful for all of you who have listened through part one.
Yeah.
We're gonna continue on with part two. We are gonna start up a new Zoom call, which will be our part two. But this has been a passion project that Montana and I have had for a very long time. We are forever grateful. I'm tearing up right now, even just like talking about this. But
Man, don't get me started.
oh my God, yeah. But we have been so excited to start this project, and this first recording was amazing. I hope you all loved it. We would love to hear any feedback, anything that uh can help us make this a better product, anything like that. Um, and yeah, we are excited to continue this conversation in part two. I sent the other Zoom link to you, so we can just hop right into that. And yeah, I hope all of you have a great day, and we will see you in part two. And the recording will end
Yep, see you in
right
part
now.
two.